Thank you for tuning in to the Untouchable Jessica Joan podcast. I'm Jessica Joan, and this is the safe space where we talk about the real stuff that no one's really talking about. So we're going to be diving into courage, clarity, and getting over shit. Because I know you got shit, we all got shit, and we need to get over it. So thank you for joining me on this ride. Here we go. Sanity. The truth is found deep inside the fiery depths of your darkness. It's when you meet your demons in hell, and instead of shutting your eyes in fear, you press your lips against theirs, then whisper into their ear, "I love you." So some of you guys may already know me, or this might be your first time getting to know me, but poetry has been my first love. I like to refer to myself as an evolutionary storyteller, but that comes from poetry and writing and growing up in a way that I wasn't able to express myself. So I decided if I'm sharing myself with you authentically, raw, uncomfortably so, that it's important for me to share my poetry with you. Okay, so welcome back, everyone, to this relaunch of the Untouchable Jessica Joan. I took a brief hiatus. As some of you may know, I had a CBS interview sharing the fact that I was, a whistleblower and a main witness in the Nexium case. If you don't, I can look it up. After I did that interview, it was a lot. It's a lot to put myself out there publicly with all that information. I even intentionally took the time to process to be able to be ready to share myself in that way and share that big part of my truth. But I felt like it was important and it was time. There had been so many things about it already on from the HBO doc, a few other docs, and it being all over the news that it was important for my own healing process to just let some of this air out. The only people who knew about it were my friends that were close to me or strangers that for some reason I felt inclined to share that. But now I'm ready to share myself with you and all of the strangers, which is really uncomfortable, to be honest, because as much as I am an extrovert, I am also an introvert, and I am very much an open book, but I'm also a really private person. However, I've always known since I was a little kid that my life and all the hardships that I've been through, which are a lot, was always meant to be shared because I've had this gift and this ability to be able to transmute all of these horrible things back to a space of feeling love and feeling gratitude. And I know it can sound kind of cliche, but it's the truth. And now I'm on this next step. Now I'm on this new chapter of my journey where I have to really be vulnerable in a big way and share my life with you all because that's my purpose. That's really what drives me. Like this whole podcast and all the things that I'm doing, it's not to just serve me, Jessica, and whatever may come from it. It's really a divine purpose to share my life, to share the stories of how I healed, because the only thing that really brings me joy and happiness is helping other people. And that's even reflected in how I handled that whole situation. And it's even why I'm finally ready to put out a book and share not just the Nexium stuff, because to be honest, that's really a small aspect in the whole spectrum of who I am and what my experience has been. And so today I really want to dive into divine timing and alignment. So, before diving into that place, I would be remiss if I did not talk about intuition. So, intuition has been my guiding light, my savior, and it's led me to some really funny places. I mean, no one wakes up and thinks, oh, I'm going to join a cult today. But everything was guided intentionally. I'm a very spiritual person. I don't associate with any specific religions. I just have my own thing and my own connection and my connection with my higher self, which has been guiding me. And I've always been guided since I was a little kid. I just didn't know what that was. It was just this little voice inside that I wouldn't really listen to often, to be completely honest, and then would have to learn lessons and then start to figure it out until that voice and my connection and awareness became stronger. So I'm going to lead into a lot of that in the book and dive deeper into how that all worked and how that came along for me on my path and different ways that I was able to turn those things on. But intuition, let's talk about that. So what is intuition? Intuition is this feeling in your gut. I like to refer to it as like your higher self, trying to like the you in the future that wants the best for you, that wants you to be happy, that is here navigating you through this human experience. And so your intuition sends you signals to your body. Sometimes it might give you a visual, or you might have a deja vu, or like in The Alchemist, one of my favorite books, they say to follow the omens. The universe is literally communicating to us all the time. Like whether there's like a sign that you see, or you think of a friend and then all of a sudden they call you. Nothing is an accident. At least this is my belief. I think it's a synchronicity. There are lessons to be learned, and the intuition is your guiding light. So for me, my intuition has helped get me out of a lot of bad situations. And like I said, it's also led me to them. But how I overcome those situations when my intuition leads me into a funny place is I ask myself, what is the lesson here? What am I supposed to learn from this? What is this triggering? Why am I here? What caused me to come to this experience? And I guarantee you, if you dig deep enough and you ask yourself these questions and you sit with yourself and like not just try to drown it out with alcohol, food, or sex and all these things, the answer is going to come to you because your intuition is always trying to help you. It's trying to protect you, and it's trying to lead you to what is going to lead you to your highest self and your happiness. Now, the thing is, growing up in this society, whether you're male, female, they, whatever, the society is set up in a structure that really doesn't promote us being our best selves. We don't get a handbook teaching us how to navigate life and how to be so, happy. There's these ideas of happy, then there's consumerism, then there's feelings of inadequacy and we need to look a certain way or be this certain way or have this certain car, this house to be happy, but really that's all bullshit. So none of that stuff actually matters. So back to intuition. It is leading us to that, which is leading us back into ourselves and the things that are actually good for us. And like I said, sometimes it's going to take us on a funny route, but sometimes we need to go to those places. Sometimes we need to have a heartbreak or have a fall on our face and get our ego checked. There's so many different reasons. But if you look at why could this possibly happen versus, oh God, how could you do this to me? Universe, but why? You're not getting the lesson. You're blaming or being a victim, which I've had my fair share of blaming my parents, especially my mom, for a lot of misfortunes. And, justifiably so, but that's not what was going to get me to where I am now. It's where personal responsibility comes into play. But anyways, I don't want to jump ahead and lose focus here. So back to intuition and divine timing and alignment. So everything happens for a reason. And you can plan plan your life, plan all these things, have all these expectations, which I think it's great to plan. I do that all the time. I set a vision, I set an intention, but I also leave enough space to co-create with the universe, to co-create with my higher self, and realize that I actually don't know what I'm doing. Like, I literally show up, like, well, I got to this place to now be in this place of surrender and not try to control freak everything. And I let my intuition guide me, and I trust that what's meant for me will be mine, whether it comes to relationships or jobs, money. And trust me, there are so many things that I had to repattern within myself, all these learned behaviors, all this ancestral trauma, generational trauma, my childhood trauma, that I was walking in a way that I had all of these filters, all of these pains, all of these beliefs that were not true at all. And unless we get rid of these things, we are operating and seeing our perspective from that place. Again, we'll save that for another podcast. But the divine timing is so important. Even doing this podcast, there was so much pressure on me for the first time to do that. When I first did this podcast and attempted to, unfortunately or fortunately, I had a team that wasn't supportive. They didn't really help me. They just, how do I put this? They basically made me do everything on my own. Or I don't want to say made me do everything on my own, but they're like, okay, you need to do a podcast. You need to do this. We need to market this. And in my mind, I was so, willing and wanting to create something that I just took on all this pressure. Also, I've been conditioned in my life, with my mom leaving at 5 years old, being the oldest, that I just was like, okay, go into emergency mode and I'm going to make it happen, which is helpful in some ways. But honestly, when you're creating and especially trying to share yourself, it's really hard. I was editing videos. I never did that before. I had my cousin Janelle helping me, thank God, and my friend Zach, and, people trying to help. But ultimately, I was the captain of the ship. But then I had these other people, this team that was telling me to do all this stuff, but then not even really aiding me and even aiding me share my vision, because it's something so vulnerable to do this. So shout out to anyone following their dreams, pursuing their art, sharing themselves, because it's a lot to put yourself out there. That's why most people don't do it. So anyways, I had a lot of PTSD after that. I was so stressed. If you guys only knew, even dealing with the CBS interview, it looks how it looks, but there was so much going on behind the scenes that I literally needed to take a pause afterwards. Not only was, okay, I'm exposing myself in the world in this way, but again, I just was like on an island by myself, like stressed, trying to like rub two sticks together to figure things out. And, there was a lot to emotionally process. I mean, going through the whole thing with NXIVM is one thing, but then also trying to get back into the, I guess, general populace and navigating who I am after such a crazy experience was a lot. So I'm really grateful now, though, because I have an amazing team. Shout out to Kimberly and Colleen. I feel so supported. Like, to even just get here in this sound booth, which feels like a safe place, and it's actually really comfortable. I wish you guys could be in here with me. It was a lot. But my whole point with the divine timing is that even as all of this NXIVM stuff was happening, I had many opportunities to be on these documentaries and to be in other documentaries and book stuff. And, there was a part of me that wanted to do it, right? My ego was like, oh, this will be great. Or like, oh, this will help you get ahead even. And, to make up for all the lost time. Because, like, let's be honest, like, I was pursuing my career with acting and modeling and all these things. And there's a few years of a lost time where Spirit just took me on a whole other journey, and I wouldn't take it back for anything, but that was also really hard for me to just, how do I get my life back on track? And so seeing these opportunities and all these people in my ear trying to tell me, oh, this is going to be great. You're going to be the main person of this, and you're going to help all these people. And in theory, it sounded good. They were saying the things that were tapping into my whole purpose. But at the end of the day, I asked my gut, my higher self, and listened to my intuition, and it said no. And to be honest, a little tip that I've learned is if it's not a fuck yes, it's a fuck no, especially when it has to do with such big, important decisions. And there was a lot of me that had anxiety as, these documentaries were coming out that I chose to not participate in, and thinking, oh, I'm going to lose the energy of the steam, or, oh, someone might tell my story. And then I had to take a deep breath, sit with myself, and really get clear, because that was my ego. That was scarcity. That was fear. That was lack. That was trying to make me make decisions from that place. And I was close. I mean, I had to backtrack a couple things. Thank God, at least I'm good at that. But now I'm taking the reins. I'm taking the reins and telling my story the way that I know my story needs to be told. And trust me, I didn't know what was the right way. I am like a grandma millennial, doing the Instagram, doing a podcast. And because I allowed myself to go on this journey, which was really rocky, like with the old team, now emerged the most divine team. It was the divine timing. I wasn't supposed to go on those documentaries. I wasn't supposed to share myself then. I wasn't ready emotionally to just like crack myself open. I'm a highly sensitive person, and I'm very intentional with what I do and even with what I share. This podcast and everything that I'm doing is all about authenticity. Like, I refuse to do anything where I don't get to be my authentic self, because I've already lived a life having to act out a whole life because my life was too hard for me to express to the world. And now I'm not going to do that. I don't do that anymore. If it's not right, it's not right. And whatever is meant to be will be. So now I'm here because of divine timing. And that's something that's a really important thing that I wanted to really relay to you guys, is like, don't make a decision out of fear, out of lack, because then you're going to manifest that. Manifest, all of these things, all these buzzwords, but really we are the creators of our experience. And I mean, there's a whole process to get to this understanding. And of course, like, there are things like The Secret and things like setting intentions and positivity, but really it's all about the shadow work, which I'll get to in a different episode. But finding the clarity on what you want is so important. And then once you have your why, like whatever your purpose is, you want to save trees, you want to help children, you want to be the best video gamer, whatever it is, do that. Be in that and trust yourself. Trust yourself enough that you're going to make the right decisions. And if you don't feel that way, then that's what you need to unpack. That's what you need to look into, because trust me, I was not trusting myself a lot of times, and I was, floundering and scared and allowing other people to get in my head to navigate my narrative, when it's like, no one else can tell my story but me, just like no one else can tell your story but you. So come from a place of being empowered. And if you're not feeling empowered, that's okay. You don't have to feel empowered all the time, but that's the work. And doing the work is how you're going to get where you want to be. And that work is not fun. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes you're going to laugh a lot, but you're going to be on your knees. You're going to be crying. That shit is hard. That's why most people don't do it. It's looking inside at all of our stuff, all of the ugly stuff, all the ways that we were a horrible person. Because at the end of the day, if you know you're a good person, that's what's going to shine through. We have all these judgments, these insecurities, all this bullshit, and you have to shake that off. So that brings me into alignment, is how do you get into alignment with yourself? So few things that I've done, it worked for me, maybe it'll work for you. There is no one road. There are many ways to get to your destination. But a lot of that is clearing out what does not serve you. So that comes from the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. We're all on our own journey. We're all our own path. We're all in our own divine timing. But once you're in alignment with yourself, that is when everything is going to start coming through, when you're clear. Because if you're not clear in your vision, if you're not clear within yourself, if you're not rooted in who you are and your purpose, and it's okay if you don't know your purpose right now, but really your purpose is to love, be loved, be a good person. Like, that's a little cheat sheet, okay? However you want to do that, there is no right or wrong way. But anyways, figuring out what that is for you. Quieting your mind. We live in a life and in a society where we're on this hamster wheel, running, and searching outside of ourselves for stuff, for clout, for like TikTok likes and Instagram likes, like all this stuff. Again, like I said, it doesn't matter. And yeah, maybe you might need it for business, whatever. Do that, but also do you. Do it from a place of purpose. Do it from a place of love, self-love, respect for yourself, respect for other people, because that's when you're going to shine your brightest. That's when the universe is going to be like throwing in all of these blessings that you couldn't even imagine. Like, I'm so excited to share my journey with you, especially in my book where I'm going to be like really diving deep and sharing such a crazy life I've had. We all have crazy lives and crazy experiences. I refer to it as crazy because when I tell people my life story, they tend to have this like dumbfounded look and in shock. It's kind of funny because for me, it's just like, oh yeah, this is just my life. This is just how I grew up. But because it is how it is, that's why I'm sharing all this right now. Okay, before I tangent off too much, I wanted to leave you with something like a call to action, we'll say. A call to action for yourself. Do it, don't do it, whatever you want to do. There's no right or wrong way. But I invite you to sit with yourself, to find even just an hour in your day, in your busy week, like schedule that. Don't just do it like flighty. There's a book that's really great, The Artist's Way. I highly recommend. And they have this thing called morning pages where you write 3 pages of just your subconscious or stream of consciousness, and you have an artist state. And those are some principles that I love, that I've adopted, things that I've already done on my own. But if you want a book to help you with that, I highly recommend The Artist's Way. But really, what I want you to do is within your week, schedule an hour of time for you to just do whatever it is that you want to do. What is something that you've been wanting to do? For me, I've always wanted to go paintballing, and I'm going to do that. I've like scheduled that in. And because I want you to get back to a place of joy. We've been under so much stress and duress and fear and all of these things that right now it is so important to cultivate and to protect your joy and to remember what that is. Maybe you just want to go to the beach. I live in LA, and I know it can be a whole hassle to get to the beach. But you know what I do when I'm getting a little crazy and not being grounded? I make sure I get my butt over there, swim in that ocean, even if it's cold, because, man, it be cold sometimes. But I do that for myself. I make sure I nourish myself. So I invite you to take 1 hour out of your week to nourish yourself and cultivate your joy. So that's it for today. Tune in to the next episode. Oh, and one last thing. I mentioned the CBS interview quite a few times, so if you haven't been able to check it out, it's actually on my Linktree on my Instagram at @LoveJessJoan, where you can also check out the Fox News article that just came out recently. Thank you again, and I'll see you real soon.